The dusty town of Willow Creek seemed frozen in time, with its wooden storefronts lining the main street and horses tethered outside the saloon swishing their tails in the late afternoon heat. The sun hung low in the sky, casting golden light across the landscape, illuminating the rough-hewn cabins and the occasional tumbleweed that skittered across the dirt road. Into this quiet, small-town world arrived Clara Bennett, a young woman with a determined gaze and a neatly packed trunk. Her heart raced as she stepped off the stagecoach, the rhythmic clatter of the wheels fading behind her. This was not just a journey across miles, it was a journey into an entirely new life. Clara was here as a mail-order bride, a decision born of necessity rather than whim. Her past was complicated and painful. She had been a nurse in a distant town, wrongly accused of malpractice, and forced to leave everything she knew behind. She had trained herself to be cautious, to hide her intelligence and skills behind a quiet exterior, and to present herself as unassuming and compliant. The letters she had exchanged with her prospective husband, Cole Montgomery, had built a tentative bridge of trust, yet she knew little of the man who awaited her. All she had were his words and a photograph of a rugged cowboy with steady eyes. The town folk immediately took notice of her arrival. She drew stares, not only because mail-order brides were rare in Willow Creek, but also because of the aura of self-possession she carried. Their whispers trailed her as she walked down the main street toward the modest ranch where Cole lived. Clara kept her chin lifted, her steps deliberate, aware that each movement was being observed. She could sense the skepticism behind the curious eyes of the townspeople. They were ready to judge her, to define her by the mere fact that she was a stranger with a past they did not know. At the edge of the street, a man waited. Cole Montgomery was tall, with broad shoulders and the kind of calm confidence that made people feel secure in his presence. His sun-browned face and weathered hands told a story of hard work, of a life carved out by grit and patience. He had been receiving letters from Clara for months, each one a careful glimpse into her thoughts and experiences. And yet, seeing her in person for the first time was different. He noticed the tension in her posture, the way her eyes scanned, the surroundings with alertness, and the subtle strength behind her cautious movements. There was something about her that told him she was more than just a mail-order bride. She was a woman with a story, and he intended to uncover it gently, with respect. Clara's first interaction with Cole was brief but telling. He offered a hand, firm yet kind, and greeted her with a quiet warmth that contrasted sharply with the town's murmurs. She studied his face, searching for any hint of the man he truly was, and found steadiness, patience, and an unspoken understanding. It was the first flicker of trust between them, the beginning of a connection that neither letters nor distance could fully prepare them for. As they walked toward the ranch, the landscape unfolded around them, rolling hills, fences enclosing livestock, and the wide-open sky that promised both opportunity and hardship. Clara's mind swirled with anticipation, fear, and hope. She wondered if the town would accept her, if she could survive the isolation, and if the man she had agreed to marry could truly see her for who she was. And yet, beneath her apprehension, there was a spark of excitement, the possibility of a new life, a fresh start, and perhaps the beginning of love built on understanding and respect. By the time they reached the ranch house, the sun had dipped lower, casting long shadows across the yard. Clara's journey had just begun, and while the challenges ahead were uncertain, one thing was clear: in Cole Montgomery, she had found a man who could see her true worth, even before the town did. The morning after her arrival, Clara Bennett awoke to the faint light of the rising sun spilling through the thin curtains of the modest ranch house. The soft sounds of livestock stirring outside mingled with the distant creak of the windmill turning in the breeze. For a moment, she allowed herself a deep, calming breath, trying to absorb the reality of her new life. This was not just a new town, a new home, or even a new husband. It was a new identity she had to forge for herself. The walls of the small home, though bare and simple, offered a sense of safety she hadn't felt in months. The first few days at the ranch were a series of adjustments. Clara had imagined the frontier life romantically, but reality was far harsher. The sun rose early, demanding work in the fields or with the livestock. Dust clung to everything, and the air carried the smells of hay, leather, and horses. Clara struggled to find her rhythm, fumbling with chores that seemed second nature to Cole. She spilled water while feeding the animals, dropped tools while mending fences, and even managed to stumble during her first attempt at riding a horse. Though frustrated with herself, she refused to show weakness. Cole, observing silently at first, gradually stepped in with a quiet patience that reassured her. He demonstrated how to tether the horses properly, how to move cattle without startling them, and even gave her a gentle lesson in riding. His approach was firm but kind, never condescending, and he seemed to have an instinct for when to push and when to let her learn on her own. Clara noticed the subtle admiration in his eyes, and though she remained wary, a flicker of trust began to grow. She was learning that competence alone wouldn't win Cole's respect. It was her willingness to try, to adapt, and to persist that mattered most. The townspeople, meanwhile, watched from a distance, their curiosity tempered with skepticism. Some women regarded Clara with open hostility, whispering that she was too refined, too educated, or too mysterious to belong in Willow Creek. Others merely observed silently, waiting for signs of weakness. Clara felt the weight of their judgment with every trip to the market or encounter on the street, but she held her head high, refusing to show that their opinions affected her. She had spent too long running from her past to now crumble under the scrutiny of strangers. Despite the work and the watchful eyes, Clara found moments of quiet joy. She discovered that she had a natural affinity with the animals, particularly the smaller, more delicate creatures on the ranch. Feeding the chickens, brushing the horses, or helping a newborn calf to its feet reminded her of her nursing days and gave her a sense of purpose beyond domestic duties. Cole noticed these small moments, often pausing to watch her from a distance, recognizing that her strength wasn't just physical, it was the quiet resilience and care she carried in every action. Evenings at the ranch became their time of connection. They shared simple meals, often sitting in silence at first, the only sounds the crackle of the stove and the occasional lowing of cattle in the distance. Slowly, conversation emerged. Clara told Cole about her love for books, her fascination with medicine, and the small details of her life before the frontier, carefully omitting the pain and injustice. Cole shared stories of the ranch, of the land, and of the hardships and joys of frontier life. In these moments, a mutual respect took root. Clara realized that Cole's steadiness was not just physical but emotional. He was a man who valued patience, effort, and character above appearances. By the end of the first week, Clara felt a tentative sense of belonging. She was no longer just a stranger in Willow Creek. She was becoming part of the rhythm of the ranch, part of the daily life she had once feared would overwhelm her. She had not yet revealed the depths of her past to anyone, not even Cole, but the small victories, the mastered chores, the shared meals, the quiet laughter gave her hope that this new life might be the fresh start she desperately needed. Life at the ranch had begun to settle into a rhythm, but for Clara Bennett, peace was fleeting. Willow Creek, like most small frontier towns, had a way of noticing everything and judging it. She soon discovered that the arrival of a mail-order bride was not a quiet event. It was a spectacle. The townspeople watched her every move with a mixture of curiosity, suspicion, and in some cases, envy. Women whispered behind their hands in the market, in the church pews, and even at the well, speculating about who she was, why she had come, and what secrets she might be hiding. Clara, aware of their scrutiny, learned to navigate it with careful poise, offering polite nods and brief, measured conversation. But she could feel their eyes lingering on her, assessing every gesture, every word, as if they were weighing her worth as a wife, a neighbor, and a woman in their tightly knit community. Despite her careful composure, Clara's past threatened to intrude on her carefully constructed present. She had fled her hometown after a false accusation of malpractice had ruined her reputation, and she carried the constant worry that someone from her past might recognize her or expose her history. One late afternoon, while tending to a horse in the corral, she spotted a man at the edge of town, standing in the shadow of the general store. There was something familiar in the set of his shoulders, the sharpness of his gaze. Her stomach tightened. Could it be someone looking for her? Or was it simply her imagination? Either way, Clara knew she could not let her fear show, not in front of Cole, and certainly not in front of the town that had yet to accept her. Cole, ever perceptive, noticed her sudden tension. His sharp eyes observed her stiffened posture and quickened breathing. He asked her gently if she was all right, offering her the kind of calm reassurance that made her feel seen without being pressed. Clara forced a smile, hiding the storm of fear and anxiety that churned inside her. She knew that revealing too much too soon could jeopardize the trust she was trying to build with him, and in a place where rumors spread like wildfire. It could also endanger her fragile place in Willow Creek. The whispers in town continued, fueled by fear of the unknown. Some speculated that Clara had run from scandal or criminality, while others assumed she was a woman of wealth or status seeking to manipulate a cowboy into marriage. Even those who were less malicious viewed her with caution, unsure how to welcome a stranger whose refined manners and intelligence seemed so at odds with the rough frontier life. Clara felt the sting of judgment, but rather than retreating, she channeled her energy into proving herself through her actions. She worked diligently on the ranch, caring for animals, tending the small garden, and learning every practical skill Cole taught her. Yet, for all her efforts, she could not ignore the sense that someone, perhaps multiple people, were waiting for her to falter. Every misstep in the kitchen, every dropped tool, every hesitant word seemed to invite scrutiny. The feeling of being watched became a constant companion, pressing on her nerves, testing her resolve. It was during these moments that she realized how much courage it took simply to exist in a place where everyone expected her to fail, to be less than, or to hide her true self. Through it all, Cole remained a steady presence. He offered guidance, encouragement, and quiet affirmation, never allowing the town's judgments to dictate how he treated her. His unwavering support became a lifeline, a reminder that even amidst suspicion and gossip, there could be someone who saw her true worth. And in that growing bond, Clara found a fragile sense of hope that perhaps she could not only survive in Willow Creek but thrive, even under the weight of whispers and the shadows of her past. For months, Clara Bennett had carefully curated the persona she presented to Willow Creek, a composed, capable, and dutiful bride, eager to adapt to frontier life. She had built walls around her past, hiding the scars of betrayal and injustice. But secrets have a way of surfacing, no matter how deeply buried. One crisp autumn morning, the delicate balance she had maintained began to shatter. A man arrived in town whose presence immediately unsettled Clara. His sharp eyes, clipped movements, and knowing smirk told her that he had come for her. Though she had tried to erase every trace of her former life, this man was Dr. Lawrence Halley, a former colleague from her nursing days who had played a pivotal role in the scandal that had forced her to flee. He had arrived under the pretense of visiting old acquaintances, but Clara knew the truth. He was here to coerce her into returning to the city to face charges she knew she did not deserve. Panic rose in her chest as she realized the threat he posed, not only to her but to the fragile life she had begun to build with Cole. If the town learned the story as he presented it, she could be driven out, shunned, or worse. Arrested. Clara spent hours pacing the small ranch house, weighing her options. She considered leaving quietly, vanishing as she had done before, but the thought of abandoning Cole, the ranch, and the life she had begun to embrace felt unbearable. She also feared the whispers and judgment of the town. Once her secret was exposed, there would be no return to normalcy. Cole, noticing her agitation, approached with gentle concern. He did not press for details at first, sensing that Clara needed space to choose how she would reveal her past. His steady presence reminded her that she was not alone in facing this challenge. Finally, late in the afternoon, Clara confided in Cole. Her voice trembled as she recounted the truth, how she had been a nurse in a distant town, falsely accused of malpractice after a patient had died under circumstances beyond her control, how the scandal had destroyed her reputation, and how Dr. Holly had been complicit in spreading false information to protect himself. She admitted her fears that the townspeople would judge her harshly if they knew, and that she had been running ever since. Cole listened without interruption, his expression calm but intense. When she finished, he reached for her hand, his calloused fingers warm and reassuring. "Clara," he said quietly, "none of that changes how I see you. Your courage, your heart, your mind, they matter more than the mistakes or lies of others. I trust you. I believe in you. That's what counts here." His words, simple yet profound, struck a chord deep within her. For the first time since her arrival, Clara felt the weight of her secret lighten. She realized that she had found someone who could see her true worth beyond rumors, mistakes, or the judgments of strangers. But the revelation did not come without risk. Dr. Holly, growing impatient and frustrated with Clara's refusal to comply, began attempting to manipulate events in town. He spread subtle insinuations, hoping to turn the community against her, and even tried to exert pressure on Cole by questioning his judgment. Yet Cole's confidence in Clara remained unwavering. Together, they began to strategize how to handle him, not with fear or anger, but with careful planning, intelligence, and courage. In revealing her secret, Clara experienced a profound shift. No longer burdened by the weight of silence, she could finally act with authenticity. Cole's acceptance validated her worth and gave her the courage to face the looming threat head-on. She recognized that while the past could not be erased, it no longer needed to define her present or her future. In that moment, the bond between Clara and Cole deepened, grounded in trust, mutual respect, and the knowledge that together they could confront any challenge. By nightfall, the ranch seemed quieter, the shadows softer. Clara stood at the edge of the porch, looking out over the fields, and felt a sense of determination she had not known in years. Secrets, she realized, could be revealed not to destroy her, but to strengthen her connection with the one person who truly saw her. And for the first time since her arrival, she felt prepared to face the world, not as a fugitive from her past, but as a woman who knew her own worth and had found someone willing to see it as well. The peace of Willow Creek had always been fragile, and with Dr. Lawrence Hale's arrival, that fragility became painfully apparent. Clara Bennett and Cole Montgomery had begun to settle into their new life together, building routines on the ranch and fostering trust in each other. But Dr. Hale's presence was a constant, unspoken menace. He didn't just lurk in the shadows. He actively sought to disrupt the life Clara had fought so hard to create. Every day brought small acts of intimidation, furtive glances, whispered rumors at the general store, and letters delivered under the guise of concern, each one calculated to undermine Clara's sense of safety and the community's trust in her. Clara tried to remain composed, but the tension gnawed at her. Every time she left the ranch for supplies or to visit the market, she felt the weight of eyes following her, judging her, waiting for her to falter. Even at home, the threat lingered. Holly had made veiled comments when they had crossed paths, questioning her capabilities and suggesting she didn't belong in Willow Creek. The deliberate provocation was designed to unsettle her, to remind her that her past could always catch up. Clara's nights were restless, filled with anxiety and worry, and she often found herself checking the locks on the doors or scanning the horizon for unfamiliar figures. Cole, ever vigilant, noticed the change in her demeanor. The usually confident Clara had become tense, her movements sharper, her smile more guarded. He began to take precautions around the ranch, reinforcing fences, checking the livestock, and subtly training Clara in ways to protect herself. But more than that, he offered her emotional support, gentle words, reassuring gestures, and the steadfast certainty that she was not alone in facing this threat. His presence became a lifeline, a reminder that courage was not the absence of fear, but the willingness to confront it together. The tension escalated when Hale's attempts moved from subtle manipulation to overt aggression. One morning, Clara discovered that a fence had been cut, allowing several of the ranch's prized horses to escape. The damage was calculated to cause maximum disruption, forcing her to spend hours in the field rounding up the animals while Cole faced the looming risk of financial loss and reputational damage in the tight-knit community. Clara's heart pounded as she realized the stakes were higher than she had imagined. The threat was not just personal. It was professional, targeting every aspect of the life she and Cole had built. Instead of succumbing to fear, Clara and Cole took decisive action. They devised a plan to safeguard the ranch, combining her intelligence, medical knowledge, and quick thinking with Cole's experience, resourcefulness, and physical skill. Clara suggested ways to trap and secure livestock more effectively, while Cole reinforced vulnerable points on the property. They spent long hours strategizing, sharing ideas, and executing their plan with precision. In these moments of collaboration, their bond deepened. They were not just husband and wife, but partners, each relying on the other's strengths to navigate danger. The townspeople, initially wary of Clara, began to witness her courage firsthand. Word spread of her resourcefulness, intelligence, and composure under pressure. Slowly, admiration replaced suspicion, and even those who had doubted her began to respect her. Clara realized that standing up to Holly wasn't just about protecting herself and Cole. It was also about proving to the town that she belonged, that her skills and character were worthy of their trust. By nightfall, the ranch stood secure, the horses accounted for, and Hale's immediate threat contained for now. Clara sat with Cole on the porch, the air heavy with the scent of hay and the fading warmth of the sun. She felt a profound mixture of exhaustion, relief, and determination. The looming threat had tested them both, but it had also revealed the depth of their partnership. In facing danger together, they had discovered a shared resilience, a growing trust, and an unspoken promise. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them side by side. After the crisis with Dr. Holly, life on the ranch settled into a rhythm that was both demanding and comforting. For Clara Bennett and Cole Montgomery, the days were filled with the hard, honest work of frontier living, tending to livestock, mending fences, managing the garden, and preparing for the harsh realities that the untamed land could throw at them. Yet amid the labor and the ever-present tension from the past, something else was quietly taking root, a deeper connection between them that went beyond respect or partnership. Clara had always admired Cole's steadfastness, the way he faced challenges with a calm mind and practical solutions. But as they spent long hours together, she began to notice the small things, the patient way he taught her to rope cattle, the subtle humor that escaped in moments of levity, and the gentle reassurance in his eyes when she felt uncertain. Cole, in turn, observed Clara in ways that few others did. He noticed her quick thinking, her compassion for the animals, her innate ability to remain composed under pressure. But more than her skills, he saw her courage and resilience, the same qualities that had allowed her to survive a life of scrutiny and false accusations. Their growing closeness was not sudden or dramatic. It was in the shared silences during early morning chores, when the sun rose over rolling hills and the only sounds were the lowing of cattle and the rustling of the wind through the grass. It was in the moments when a stubborn calf refused to cooperate, and together they devised a plan to calm it. It was in the quiet evenings by the fire, when conversation flowed from practical matters to deeper thoughts, from dreams of the future to memories of the past. Clara found herself laughing more, opening up in ways she had never allowed before. While Cole began to reveal his own vulnerabilities, stories of loss, and the burdens of maintaining the ranch alone before her arrival, their partnership began to feel effortless, a natural blend of trust and interdependence. Cole relied on Clara's intelligence and insight as much as her hands, valuing her opinions when making decisions about the ranch or the townspeople. Clara, in turn, found solace in his unwavering support, the knowledge that he would not judge her for the secrets she carried, and the way he encouraged her to assert herself rather than shrink into expected roles. Every shared accomplishment, every problem solved together, deepened their bond. They were learning not just to coexist but to rely on one another, and that reliance began to evolve into something more tender and intimate. Even in moments of quiet vulnerability, their connection grew. One evening, after a long day of repairing fences and feeding livestock, Clara and Cole sat on the porch, watching the sky turn from gold to deep indigo. The air was crisp, scented with hay and the promise of rain. For a long time, they sat in silence, simply appreciating the presence of the other. Then, Cole reached for her hand, his touch gentle but deliberate. It was a small gesture, but it carried weight, a silent acknowledgement of trust, affection, and the unspoken feelings that had been building between them. Clara's heart swelled with a mix of relief and longing, realizing that she had found not only a partner but someone who saw her for who she truly was. Challenges on the ranch and the lingering threat of Dr. Halle continued to test them, but each trial only strengthened their bond. Working side by side, overcoming obstacles, and protecting their shared home allowed them to see each other in ways no letters or distant correspondence ever could. By the end of the season, Clara and Cole's relationship had evolved into something rich and enduring, built on mutual respect, shared experience, and the knowledge that whatever the future held, they would face it together. Love, quiet but undeniable, had begun to flourish amid the dust, sweat, and resilience of frontier life. The winds of Willow Creek had always carried whispers of gossip and judgment, but they also carried the possibility of change. After months of observing Clara Bennett and witnessing her resilience, intelligence, and quiet courage, the townspeople began to see her in a new light. The defining moment came unexpectedly, as it often does on the frontier, a sudden crisis that demanded action. Revealing character in its rawest form, it was a scorching afternoon when a fire broke out on the outskirts of town. Sparks from a lightning strike had caught dry brush, and the flames quickly spread toward homes and barns. Panic swept through Willow Creek as people scrambled to protect their families, livestock, and livelihoods. Clara, who had faced fear and uncertainty throughout her life, acted swiftly. With nerves of steel and a clear mind, she organized efforts to contain the fire, coordinating townsfolk in a way that maximized their efficiency and safety. Her medical knowledge proved invaluable as she treated minor burns, soot inhalation, and injuries that occurred during the frantic work. Cole watched her in awe. He had known her strength and intelligence, but seeing her command attention and respect under such intense pressure was different. It was transformative. She moved among the frightened townspeople with a calm authority, issuing instructions with confidence and ensuring that no one was left behind or in danger. The fire was relentless, and for a time, it seemed that the town might lose valuable buildings and livestock. Yet Clara's guidance, combined with Cole's steady leadership and knowledge of the land, prevented the worst from happening. Together, they formed a formidable team, demonstrating to everyone that courage and quick thinking could overcome even the most dangerous of circumstances. By the time the flames were finally contained, the damage was minimal. What could have been a disaster became a testament to human resilience and the power of collaboration. The townspeople, many of whom had been skeptical of Clara, were forced to confront their own prejudices. They saw that she was not a fragile, refined outsider, but a woman of skill, bravery, and character qualities that made her not only a capable partner for Cole, but an invaluable member of the community. Whispers of doubt were replaced with murmurs of admiration, and even the most critical observers began to express gratitude for her decisive actions. In the days following the fire, Clara's role in the town's survival became a topic of open acknowledgement. People came to the ranch, not to judge, but to thank her personally. They sought her advice for medical care, assistance with animals, and even guidance on preventing future disasters. Clara, once cautious and guarded, found herself embraced by a community that had finally recognized her true worth. She felt a warmth that had been absent since she had fled her past, a sense of belonging that went beyond mere acceptance. It was genuine respect, hard-earned through action and integrity. Cole, too, was buoyed by the town's shift in perception. He took pride not only in Clara's accomplishments, but in the partnership they had formed. Their bond had deepened through shared adversity, and now the recognition of the townspeople validated what he had known all along. Clara was extraordinary, capable of more than anyone could have imagined. He made a point to praise her openly, reinforcing the trust and admiration she had earned. That evening, as the sun dipped low behind the hills and the town slowly returned to its usual rhythm, Clara and Cole sat on the porch of the ranch, surveying the fields and the smoke-stained horizon. There was a sense of peace, hard-won and richly deserved. Clara reflected on the journey that had brought her here, the fears, the secrets, and the doubts that had once weighed her down. Now she felt empowered, recognized, and truly part of Willow Creek. The community that had once questioned her motives now stood behind her, a testament to her courage and integrity. In that moment, Clara realized that she had not only survived her past, but had transformed it into a source of strength. She was no longer merely a stranger or an outsider. She was a valued member of the town, a partner to Cole, and a woman who had proven, through action and character, that she belonged. Willow Creek had seen her worth, and in doing so, had allowed her to see herself in a new light. The tension that had been simmering in Willow Creek for months reached its peak one stormy evening. Dr. Lawrence Hawley, frustrated by his inability to intimidate Clara Bennett or discredit her in the town, decided to act openly. Lightning flashed across the darkened sky as he rode into the valley where Cole Montgomery's ranch lay, his intent unmistakable. He was no longer subtle. His plan was to force Clara to comply with his demands, to assert control over the life she had fought to rebuild. This confrontation was inevitable, and both Clara and Cole knew it. Clara's heart raced as she watched Hawley approach. She felt a mixture of fear and determination, the same emotion she had wrestled with since his arrival. But this time, she was not alone, and she was no longer a woman cowering under the weight of secrecy and suspicion. Cole stood beside her, broad-shouldered and resolute, a steady anchor in the storm. Together they had prepared for this moment, combining their knowledge, skills, and courage to face whatever threats Hawley might present. The tension between the three figures was palpable, the air thick with anticipation, rain beginning to fall in heavy sheets. Drumming against the tin roof and muddy ground, Hawley wasted no time with pleasantries, issuing a series of demands and veiled threats. He insinuated that he could destroy Clara's hard-won place in Willow Creek, ruin Cole's reputation, and force her back into the city to face false charges. His words were sharp, designed to provoke fear and hesitation. But Clara, drawing on months of resilience and the lessons she had learned on the ranch, refused to be cowed. She met his gaze steadily, her voice firm and unwavering, asserting that she would not be intimidated and that her life here was her choice. Cole stepped forward, placing a protective hand on Clara's shoulder, his voice calm but commanding. "You've had your chance, Hawley. Leave now or face the consequences of your actions." It was not just a warning. It was a declaration of their partnership, a clear message that they would face threats together. Hawley, expecting fear and submission, faltered slightly at the sight of their united front. His plan relied on division and doubt, but what he encountered instead was solidarity and strength. The confrontation escalated as Hawley attempted a final, desperate move, threatening Cole directly, trying to provoke a physical altercation. But Cole and Clara were prepared. Using both strategy and courage, they outmaneuvered him. Clara's quick thinking played a pivotal role. She anticipated Hale's movements, guided Cole in defensive positioning, and even created a diversion that allowed them to control the situation. The rain-soaked ground made footing precarious, but neither faltered. They moved with precision and confidence, a testament to the trust and understanding they had built over months. Finally, Hawley, realizing that intimidation and aggression had failed, withdrew. He mounted his horse and retreated into the storm, the threat still lingering but effectively neutralized for the time being. Clara and Cole, drenched and exhausted, stood together, the adrenaline of the confrontation slowly ebbing. The storm around them mirrored the storm they had weathered, chaotic, intense, and relentless, but unlike the weather, their bond had emerged stronger, forged in trust, courage, and shared determination. In the aftermath, Clara felt a profound sense of empowerment. She had faced the embodiment of her past fears and had done so without compromise. Cole's unwavering support had reinforced the truth she had come to embrace. She was capable, worthy, and no longer defined by the shadows of others' deceit. Together, they had not only defended themselves, but had solidified their partnership, proving that threats, no matter how menacing, could not break the life they were building. As the storm passed and the clouds began to break, revealing the first light of dawn, Clara and Cole stood side by side, surveying the ranch. The confrontation had ended, but its significance remained. They had faced the ultimate test of courage and unity, emerging victorious. In that victory, Clara found not only safety and security, but the deeper realization that with Cole by her side, there was no challenge too great, no fear too daunting. Their love and trust had been tempered in adversity, ready to endure whatever the future held. The storm that had tested Clara Bennett and Cole Montgomery was over, both in the literal sense and metaphorically. In the days following Dr. Hale's retreat, the tension that had hung over the ranch and Willow Creek began to dissipate. Clara could finally breathe without the constant gnawing anxiety of being exposed or undermined. But more importantly, she began to notice subtle shifts around her, the acknowledgement, respect, and even admiration of the townspeople she had long feared would reject her. The fire and Hale's threats had served as a catalyst for change. Neighbors who had once whispered behind their hands now approached Clara openly, expressing gratitude for her courage and her quick thinking. Farmers who had doubted her abilities sought her advice on animal care and minor injuries, while the local storekeeper made a point to ask after her well-being. These small gestures, seemingly ordinary, were profound for Clara. Each one represented a recognition of her skills, her judgment, and her character. For the first time in years, she felt truly seen, not as a fugitive from her past or an outsider thrust into their community, but as an integral, respected member of Willow Creek. Cole, always observant, noticed the changes in Clara as well. The tension in her shoulders had eased. Her laughter came more freely, and her eyes, once guarded and wary, now reflected a quiet confidence. Their relationship had grown beyond partnership. It was now a bond fortified by trust, shared adversity, and mutual admiration. Every shared triumph over the challenges of ranch life, every confrontation with danger, had deepened their connection. Clara realized that this acceptance from Cole and from the town was a healing balm she had long denied herself. A chance to rebuild her identity not around fear and secrecy, but around courage, competence, and love. The healing process was not solely about external acknowledgement. Clara also began to reconcile with herself, confronting the lingering shame and pain from her past. She reflected on the false accusations that had driven her from her hometown, the betrayal by those she had trusted, and the years spent running from a reputation she did not deserve. Instead of allowing these memories to define her, she now reframed them as lessons that had forged resilience and self-reliance. The trials she had endured had prepared her for life on the frontier, for the demands of the ranch, and most importantly, for the partnership she shared with Cole. She understood that the past, while painful, had equipped her to claim the respect and love she now enjoyed. The townspeople's acceptance also brought unexpected joy. Clara began participating more fully in community events, offering her skills to assist neighbors in need, and even teaching younger women practical skills she had acquired. She felt a sense of belonging she had never known, a connection that went beyond mere tolerance to genuine inclusion. Every smile, every nod of acknowledgement, reinforced the truth she had longed to believe. She had a place here, and she had earned it. Evenings at the ranch took on a new warmth. After long days of work, Clara and Cole would sit together on the porch, sometimes in companionable silence, sometimes sharing laughter and stories. Their hands found each other instinctively, a symbol of the trust and love that had grown between them. Cole often reminded her of her strength, her worth, and her importance, not just to him, but to the life they were building together. For Clara, these words were more than affirmation. They were proof that healing was possible, that the scars of the past could coexist with the promise of a hopeful, meaningful future. By the time autumn's first frost dusted the fields, Clara felt a profound transformation. She had survived hardship, faced fear, and reclaimed her life on her terms. Willow Creek, once a town of skepticism and whispers, had become a community that valued her. And more importantly, Clara had come to value herself. In Cole's steadfast support, the townspeople's respect, and her own courage, she discovered a deep sense of peace. The journey of acceptance and healing was complete, not because the past had vanished, but because she had learned to stand firmly in the present, fully aware of her worth and ready to embrace the future. The frontier dawned crisp and golden over Willow Creek, illuminating the rolling fields and the modest ranch where Clara Bennett and Cole Montgomery had built not only a home, but a life together. After months of trials, dangers, and emotional reckonings, they now stood on the threshold of a future unshackled by fear, gossip, or the shadows of past betrayals. Their journey had been arduous. Clara's secrets, Dr. Hale's threats, the town's skepticism, but all had strengthened their bond and forged a love that was patient, steadfast, and profound. Mornings on the ranch had become a gentle rhythm of shared tasks and quiet companionship. Clara moved with confidence and ease, tending the animals, caring for the land, and assisting the community when needed. Cole worked alongside her, offering guidance when necessary, but always allowing her autonomy and respecting her intelligence. The physical labor of ranch life, once daunting to Clara, had become a source of pride, and she reveled in the tangible results of her efforts, the neat rows of the garden, the thriving livestock, the repaired fences that marked a land well cared for. Together, they were not just surviving. They were flourishing. Beyond the work, their emotional connection had deepened. Evenings were spent on the porch, watching the sun sink behind the hills, the sky painted in streaks of amber and violet. They shared stories, laughter, and unspoken comfort, a quiet intimacy built on trust and shared experiences. Cole often reflected on how Clara's courage, intelligence, and kindness had transformed not just his life, but the entire ranch. In turn, Clara marveled at Cole's steadfastness, his capacity for patience, and the unwavering support he offered her, a support that allowed her to embrace both her strengths and vulnerabilities. The town, too, had fully embraced Clara. Neighbors who once whispered now greeted her warmly, asking for advice or simply sharing news of the community. Her actions during the fire, her bravery against Dr. Hawley, and her daily contributions had earned their respect. She was no longer an outsider or a subject of curiosity. She had become a valued member of Willow Creek. This acceptance, while gratifying, was secondary to the sense of home she had found in Cole's steadfast presence. It was here, in the quiet of the ranch and the steady rhythm of their shared lives, that Clara truly felt she belonged. One afternoon, Cole led Clara to a spot on the edge of the pasture where the horizon stretched endlessly, dotted with wildflowers and bathed in the golden light of late afternoon. He turned to her, his eyes reflecting both the warmth of the sun and the depth of his affection. With a gentle yet firm voice, he spoke of partnership, love, and commitment, not just as a formal vow, but as a promise of unwavering support and shared purpose. Clara, moved by the sincerity in his words, felt a profound sense of joy and completion. She realized that the man beside her had seen her worth from the start, had believed in her abilities and character, and had loved her for who she truly was. Their union was more than marriage. It was a merging of lives, dreams, and values. Every challenge they had faced, secrets, threats, societal judgment, had been transformed into a foundation for their future. They understood that love was not merely romantic sentiment, but a deliberate, daily choice to support, respect, and cherish one another. Their hands intertwined, they gazed across the fields they had nurtured together, envisioning the years ahead filled with family, work, community, and the quiet satisfaction of shared achievement. As the sun dipped below the hills and the sky turned a deep shade of indigo, Clara and Cole returned to their home, ready to embrace the life they had fought to claim. Their love, tempered by adversity and strengthened by trust, promised resilience against whatever future trials might come. In that moment, the story of a mail-order bride with secrets and a cowboy who saw her true worth came to its most profound realization. They had found not only each other, but a life built on respect, courage, and unwavering devotion. Their new beginning was not the absence of hardship, but the triumph over it, a love and partnership destined to endure.